in a world awash in chaos.
What is Walking Phoenix?
Joaquin Phoenix? What is Joaquin Phoenix?
Or whatever you said.
It's a man.
Oh.
His name is Joaquin Phoenix. Okay. What the fuck?
Jupiter.
Uranus.
A group of brave heroes take on all things action.
Season 3!
Hi guys, welcome to another great edition of All Things Action Videocast. I am Dad, aka Aaron, and with me this week is
Kyle, a.k.a. the most frequent guest star of the show that isn't Raiden.
Yes. Awesome. Kyle, how are you?
Good, man. I feel a lot better now. I feel a lot more comfortable with a microphone in my face.
Yeah.
Than the previous version. So I have something to distract myself and make it work
And
better than just talking into the air.
You don't have a bunch of kids running around back and forth and being all weird and angry and
doing
all that stuff, right?
Doing all that shit.
So, right off the top, Kyle, I think it goes without saying we want to give our thoughts to everyone here in Nebraska where we film this. Right now we are going through a ridiculous amount of flooding, catastrophic, one would say.
Yeah, this is about as catastrophic as I've ever seen flooding in this state. I remember a few years back that it might have been in like 2006 or 7, maybe 2008, one of those years in Iowa had a similar situation, and Iowa's got a bunch of rivers flowing through it just like Nebraska, and a lot of their big cities are near this stuff, and I just remember just like they had some real catastrophic flooding. It was like the entire state is sinking.
Yeah.
And now that's happening here right now. There are whole tiny towns that are just completely underwater. Luckily here in Lincoln, we're not really near the mouth of a big, like banks of a big river. Like the Platte is far enough north of us.
Lincoln is
high
way
enough.
up there,
yeah. And like same with most of Omaha, as you go east, like the middle of Omaha is crested up enough that they don't suffer it. But the Missouri River side's having trouble, and the other side where the Elkhorn River and stuff is also having difficulties. This state is sinking, but hopefully won't stay sunk for too long.
Yeah, well, and the levees, bridges. I mean, the fact that we're watching bridges literally just
get
wash
swept away
is crazy. It was terrible to hear that a farmer was out trying to provide help to a rural firefighter group, and they told him to go across a bridge, and it went out at the same time, and he unfortunately lost his life. So really kind of feeling the effects of what's going on here in the state. But yeah, we'll try to not get too melancholy here. And
we'll try not to.
Yeah, but so it's been an interesting week. Obviously, we just got done with Raiden and his whole cast thing. He's doing well, so everybody can breathe a sigh of relief that Raiden's doing okay.
Yep, still able to play his video games just fine,
yes,
fine and dandy.
He showed Kyle how well he does it.
How to play Apex
already.
Legends,
so
yes.
The game that's only been out for like a month now.
Yep.
And he's already winning with people. But yeah, everything else that's out there right now is kind of out in the ethos. I would say the number one thing that we'll probably touch on today, probably won't sit here and go bit by bit like we did the first week. And then obviously with Fran last week, we didn't as well.
Yeah.
Because we talked about wrestling a little bit before the show started, and you said, I've been going back and watching some stuff with The Rock.
Yep.
And that's about it. So, that's good though. That you got to start somewhere. Start small, build up. We'll get you to AEW and, MJF and all those guys.
It's a lot of acronyms you're throwing at me. I have no clue what you're saying.
AEW is an organization.
I assume with a W in it.
MJF is a wrestler.
Okay. Well, because I honestly thought that was an organization too. You could have never told me that, and I've been like, oh, okay,
exactly.
That's totally fine.
Exactly.
That's something, I suppose.
We've got some work to do.
You've got a lot of work to do because I'm stuck in 1997 when it comes to wrestling.
That's okay.
So, and that's the best. And if you say any other era is better than that, then you're fucking wrong. You're totally wrong.
It's the Attitude Era.
The best one. That's
the only era that matters. That's the one that they're actually trying to get back.
The only thing that mattered when I was like 12 years old, 13 years old watching wrestling was who was going to win the ratings war on Monday night. Was it going to be WCW, Monday Nitro, or Raw?
Yep.
And that was the thing. That was all anybody gave a shit about. Like the other shows were cool. Like the Thursday night shows were fun, and I think they usually did like a Sunday or a Saturday show or whatever it was. But Monday, that was the main event. That wasn't a pay per view. It was Monday night, whichever one of each show. And it was like it was real. I mean, you had Nitro just knocking the WWF out, and they're just like, oh. F, by the way, back in the day, was not the WWE quite yet. It was still the F at that point until the World Wildlife Foundation decided to crack their Greenpeace whip at him and take him down.
They even were going to let McMahon use it, but McMahon was too pompous, and they were like, fuck.
Okay, I guess you're sued now.
Yeah.
You have to
like,
WWE.
I guess we won't let you use it.
But it was the best because then all they tried to do was just outdo each other the entire time, and it led to the most insane antics in wrestling that you could think of, and all these personalities became larger than life. I mean, God knows the most popular wrestler in WCW at that era was Sting, and he wasn't there 90% of the time. He was just like, is Sting going to show up tonight? Is Sting going to show up tonight? And he never did, and then he would, and people would just lose their fucking mind. It was like, oh my God. And then, with the whole NWO thing, which was huge in WCW, younger fans, you might not remember, that started in WCW, and I think it might still be a thing or was a thing in WWE for a while.
They dust it off every couple of years
just to bring it out for the nostalgia.
It's kind of like DX.
Yeah,
they'll dust that off.
That was another thing of the Attitude Era was the DX thing as well. So they would just try to one up each other, and you got these massive personalities as a response. The Rock would never become what he became had it not been for that era. Steve Austin wouldn't have done what he did. The Undertaker had been around for a while, but he blew up in that era. Kane never would have been what he was without that stuff. DX, their whole shtick. I'm trying to think of other examples in the WWE that just blew up outrageously. Just personalities became larger than life. And same in WCW.
Val Venus, Godfather. Like there were things that really they decided to just go full hog on, and
literally, literally. With
hog.
Val Venus, literally the full hog.
Show me the hog.
Show him that.
Well, listen
pop
to
them
us.
pants
We're
off.
actually having like a discussion on wrestling. This is great.
Yeah. See, all you had to do was tap into my inner nostalgia child, and I'll just go after it. But that's the thing. It's like I can't talk about new stuff because I have really no clue who's around anymore. I don't know what the big thing is. And
it's all changed now.
Yeah.
That's the thing is the actual promotions that are kind of gaining ground or traction right now are the ones that actually are going back to that, where WWE is getting away from that. They're doing the full inclusion for everybody, and women's evolution and all that stuff, which is great. But you also have Vince McMahon, who's still in control. So he's going, and every once in a while they'll do something that really pumps up the women's division, and then they'll have a woman get walked in on while she's topless.
as would be a very classic 90s McMahon move. I mean, that's what they did.
From the back, she's like looking, and
all they would, but that was and that was the same thing about that era. I mean, I wax nostalgic about it, but Jesus, if you go back in time and look at it, you're like, oh my goodness, there's this. This probably couldn't ever exactly exist these days. It just isn't. It's just not the same. And 12-year-old me was like, cool. Exactly. Now I'm like, oh, maybe not. I'm not entirely certain, but it is what it is. There's my wife and I like to watch the CBS reality shows, and in the most current iteration of Celebrity Big Brother, there was a WWE women's wrestler, Natalie Eva Marie. I don't know if you know who that is. She, I'm assuming you did, but she was in that show, and I was like, well, there you go. That's somebody.
She was the last.
Aaron probably knows about.
She was last of the diva group, and that was. It's funny you bring her up because that was her whole shtick. Was she'd never wrestled because there was always something that prevented her from it. And a lot of times it was wardrobe malfunctions. So there was one time where she literally was walking down, and all of a sudden she's putting her arm, and obviously this was completely choreographed.
It's a staged
she put it
item.
Up, and as she put it up, her front started to come off, and so she had to run to the back, and she couldn't wrestle, And
it was just a whole thing for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it was, you could tell that was Vince McMahon's footprint, or handprint right there on that to say, yep, this is still happening. And then it seemed like after Eva Marie left, that's when they went through the whole like, oh, we're going to treat everybody as equals. And, they have done a really good job of, and everything across the board, they've done a really good job of being inclusive, body positive.
Yeah.
You're seeing women who don't fit the traditional wrestling stereotype of like, big boob blonde woman. You've got women who, they're thick, they're short, they're,
just all types, just like in the men's
It's
division,
awesome.
there's just all types.
Yeah.
I mean, not every guy was just like this, just jacked up, muscular like The Rock, or whatever. You get humongous guys like Brock Lesnar and Scott Steiner, and what was his face? The dude who did Lex Luthor did the torture rack. Was that the name of his? I remember that.
Yep.
And then you had the littler guys, the smaller cruiserweight type people, and you had everybody into fat guys with their own. So you have every type of dude. So there's no reason you shouldn't have every type of woman too if you're going to have a wrestling division.
Exactly.
Have you ever seen the Netflix show Glow? Did you ever watch that?
We watched Glow.
It's super good. I liked it.
And then there's
a great deal.
And then the guy who made Glow is now producing something on Access TV called Women of Wrestling, which is basically Glow in 2019.
You mean like the dude who made Real Life Glow, or like the creator of the show Glow, like the actual gorgeous ladies of wrestling person from like the 80s or whatever is like making their own thing?
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And
interesting.
And so they're back. They're doing that, and they actually put together a pretty cool show.
Yeah.
Where it's all women,
just wacky, character-y.
But that's the thing. For me, it's too much. But for Samaya and Raiden, they dig it.
That's the thing.
They've got a woman that's called like Jungle Girl, and they've got a big African American woman called the Beast. And she's she's pretty much Brock Lesnar as a woman. and or China back in the day.
Yep.
And she just squashes everybody. But then they have Tessa Blanchard, who's Tully Blanchard's daughter, one of the Four Horsemen. So you get this level of authenticity.
Yeah, and you get the legacies and stuff.
Yeah. And so, there's always something to look forward to on that show. We don't watch it quite as often, but, like last night, we watched New Japan Pro Wrestling.
That's the thing, yeah. Japanese wrestling has always been kind of a big thing, too. Man. You'll see a lot of wrestlers, from these that were popular in the United States at any era in the timeline would wrestle in Japan and Mexico. Both, they would just wrestle. I mean, just like you can't imagine these superstars having wrestled there, but that was just the thing that you did. That you got your wings, so to speak, or you got your sea legs under you, like wrestling in a different
Vader's
league.
a great name to bring up, where he was extremely popular in the United States. He was spooky. He's a great heel,
big dude,
big villain. He was actually bigger in Japan before he came over here and was dominant too. So, there's a lot of sharing going on.
Spoke about Chris Jericho. He was pretty big in the Mexican wrestling scene for a long time.
And in Japan. Yeah. You talk about a well-traveled guy. That's why people think he is kind of the best of all time.
Yep.
And
a guy who's just everywhere and succeeds everywhere.
And he's endured. I mean, all of the guys that he came up with are now dead.
Yeah.
And it's like he's only 50.
Yeah, and he's still just doing it. He's got a podcast, I think. I remember him saying that's There's a well-spoken Canadian man
or something like
going
that,
around and wrestling everywhere but Canada. A lot of Canadian wrestlers too. Now I think of it, the Harts.
Yep.
And that was a big thing too when Owen Hart died on that accident, man. I remember watching that show and everybody was like, what's going on? I mean, that was literally kids. We were kids and teenagers watching this show, and Owen Hart is going to do this stunt where he was like dressed up as this dumb idiot, like blue character, whatever the hell it was. I don't remember what it was called.
Patriot or something like that.
And he was going to do like a jumping from the rafters thing, and he did it, but unfortunately he jumped into his death. And that was on TV because they showed him doing that, and then they kind of like were like, and then cut away, and everybody's like, what happened? And then like, oh, Owen Hart just died. Like, oh boy.
The irony is that they actually put in a 7-second delay just weeks prior to that because of a different incident that involved, I think it was
Owen Hart, right?
Well, it was
because then they do this stunt twice where like once it like worked but was kind of fucked up, and they're like, maybe you shouldn't do that, and then he like did it and died or something like that.
No, there's a reason why Owen Hart's still not in the WWE Hall of Fame is because his wife still holds a grudge against Vince McMahon.
Yeah,
because they told him he can't do this anymore. This is
Was
way
that
too dangerous.
was that in WWF or was that
was
in
in
I thought it was at WCW. I guess
that was WWF
because the Hearts were in WWF before they went
because
to WCW,
Sting
right?
was starting to do that too over in that one
In WCW.
and that's the thing too is that I guess Bret the Hitman Hart when he went over there, he I guess told Sting like you keep doing that shit.
You and
I are gonna go in rounds. You
Yeah.
do not do that during the shows that I'm working. Well,
Because it's just tough to watch him
Sting's
do
like,
something
Sting's
that
like this is my bread and butter.
This is my-
man.
this is my shtick,
the
dude. This
one
is my-
thing that
this is
gets
my-
me."
this is my
Yeah.
character.
He wasn't a great wrestler, you know.
Yeah.
So he played into that whole Crow darkness thing.
for not being a great wrestler though, he wrestled for a long time.
Yeah.
because he had a good personality for it and very popular.
and he wasn't into the steroids. You know, that's
Yep.
the thing is like as time goes by, you really see
Which guys
who was
were
doing
and
it
which
right
weren't.
and who was doing it wrong.
Yeah.
If it wasn't the drugs, it was the steroids. You know, and obviously steroids are
And
drugs,
sometimes
but-
both of the things.
Yeah.
Like the Ultimate Warrior was just cracked out of his mind.
Correct.
All the time. And the steroids, that dude was jacked as hell, but he was just,
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't have given that guy enough crack to sate his appetite for like the amount of time he was popular. And then if you ever, cause he's dead now, but if you remember back in the, after he was a wrestler, he became like this crazy YouTube personality who would just like scream at his camera and be insane. I'm like, oh my God,
Just like
this guy's just
everybody.
out of his mind. Yeah, just like everybody, but he just never lost the ability to snort cocaine into his nose. But yeah, you can definitely tell the guys who like did the career right. You know, it puts miles on everybody. I mean, it's a traveling circus basically. When they're doing shows all over the place, they're going to all these different places. They're living on buses, living in shitty hotels. Even the big personalities, really the only ones who are even getting any sort of luxury out of it. You know, it's a tough lifestyle if you're even doing it right. So I mean, why wouldn't you just like do steroids so that you can work out and recover and stay huge the entire season than just like be tired all the time?
Right.
And why wouldn't you just do drugs to stay awake or stay sane when you're just like 280 days of the year or more, you're just on the road performing in podunk shit towns for the most part with a big show here and there.
The people that always I just shook my head at were the ones that willfully embraced it too. Is like Scott Steiner is probably
that
the
dude,
one that
that's
I'm
the
just
best.
like,
The best example of
just
a guy
like,
was like, I definitely
he left WWF and he was gone for a little while, and then when he came into WCW,
he was
a different guy.
massive
He
with
was a
the
completely
goatee.
different
Yeah,
guy.
just a different. Like
You know?
him and his brother used to look a lot more alike, and then all of a
His brother
sudden,
was gigantic.
Yeah.
Like his brother was bigger
just
than he was.
a thick
you know?
dude, and then yeah, Scott Steiner's like, well, I'm just gonna be jacked, and I mean, the guy literally is short of just injecting himself with a needle straight in front of everybody.
In front of everybody.
was just like,
Yeah.
I am totally roided out, and
Yeah.
I'm like cool with it. You
Yeah.
know, I'm gonna wear a chainmail tank top.
And he's still doing that.
Does he
too.
still like that shtick
Yeah.
with the goatee?
Yeah, he was just on
and the shades.
He was just on a Being the Elite, which is the Young Bucks AEW. It's their like side thing.
Yeah.
And he was on there for like 30 seconds, and he's just
the same.
He's 50 years old, and he's gigantic. You know.
Yep. His heart's just gonna explode in his chest one of these days, and he'll be like, I guess that's what happens
Yep.
eventually.
It's
so
just, he's burning
a
it
life
at both ends.
Yeah.
You know. So,
a life hard lived by that guy.
But
There
yeah,
you go,
shit, man.
Wrestling.
Well,
we
we're
talked about
already
wrestling for 20 straight
almost
minutes.
20 minutes in already. So
See, it doesn't matter how much you do or don't know about anything. If you can just
Yeah.
bullshit for a while, I mean, and that's the thing. I think that's a good point of nostalgia. Like, I haven't watched wrestling in any sort of semblance, in any sort of like seriousness in 15 plus years or more. And yet we can talk 20 minutes about it. And that's the whole thing, is like, that's why you talk about all these leagues doing that stuff. Guys still being around after those times, because people just like reach so hard for that old era that they'll bring it out as many times as it's necessary to like, hey, like, wrestling's still cool. Like, look at this guy that you remember. He's awesome. Like, he's old as shit now, but that's fine.
Yeah.
He's still here. And you're like, that's fucking dope. He's cool. And then you just fall down the rabbit hole, and then they get you.
And it is a time machine too, because a time machine in the sense that nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Like, we still talk about the 90s as being kind of like the heyday of wrestling. Well,
Yep.
it's almost like time has stood still for 20 years.
Yep.
And we're still talking like the 2000s was kind of ambiguous.
Yeah.
You know, like,
It's kind of was its
you
own
got
little thing.
certain guys who came in and, you know, like John Cena would be a name that, you know, got popular afterwards and stuff like that. But now it's almost like this angry giant is starting to wake up,
Yeah.
And it's just kind of cool to see that 2019 is going to start changing a little bit with wrestling. So I would suggest popping in, like I said, type in AEW on YouTube and see, or Being the Elite, like see what some of these guys are like, because it's a different breed, but it still has the same feeling of like back then, It harkens back to the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars. And I'm hoping AEW can actually not compete with WWE, but at least give somebody something else to look forward to on those nights. So.
But isn't that what you want, though? You want WWE to have competition, because that's when they were the best. Is when they didn't just own everything. When they finally sunk WCW is when it was the beginning of the end for them, because then they didn't, they still rode that wave high for a good chunk of time, because they all the wrestlers that were popular in WCW went to the WWE. And it was great, because there's oh, look at all my wrestlers that I used to have to watch 2 different shows to see these guys. Now all of a sudden I can watch Goldberg, Spear, The Undertaker, and that never happened in WCW because they were in different organizations. Or
Booker
I can watch,
T.
I can watch Chris Jericho.
He's a 2-time WWE Hall of Famer, and he was only in the WWE wrestling for maybe 6 years. And it was really
just
during
as much time in because him and his brother spent all their time doing their stuff in WCW,
exactly,
and
building their names and building their brand.
Chris Jericho is another good example, because he was so popular in WCW and super popular in the WWE too. So you had all these guys that you're like, man, what's it like now that these guys can all wrestle each other? And they rode that wave for a while, and then that talent started to leave, and the new talent sort of came by, like the John Cenas and the CM Punks and the Randy Ortons and stuff, where it's okay, they're fine, and then but that's the whole thing, is that's the only 3 that I popped in my head off the top of my head. You
Dave
said
Bautista,
less, yes.
I mean, but like I said, I could rattle off a hell of a lot, and it still wouldn't mean anything,
Yeah.
We still go back to The Rock, Stone Cold, Mankind, and then probably the next tier of the WCW main guys, and then the 80s main guys and everything.
Yep.
So, it's fun to talk about,
It is.
I like talking wrestling, so.
Well, there you go. Glad I could talk wrestling for 20,
hell yeah, man.
25-ish
well,
minutes or whatever.
Let's transition, and let's talk a little bit about, obviously, the big movie that just came out.
Yep.
You went and saw it today.
Saw it today, fresh in my brain.
Few days ago. Captain Marvel, Marvel's newest superhero. First reactions?
I thought it was super good. So there's been 20, 21 Marvel movies or something at this point. Yeah. I would say it's top 10 for sure. I don't know if I would say it's top 5 by any reason, but it's up there. I mean, it's better than the middle of the pack, which is good. That's a good thing. If you can just make a Marvel movie that is better than most of the other ones before it, you're doing great. And it's really tough because most of them are super good. There's only a few, and the stinkers of the group aren't even that bad. That's how you have a good product, when you have 20 movies and the worst ones are 65% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's you're pretty damn good if you have basically no just total flubs out there. Like DC will make 10 movies and 8 of them will suck ass and 2 will be awesome. And it's that's just, and you kind of expect that from a lot of franchises, but Marvel just knocks it out basically every time, because Feige, the master, has the railroaded plan laid out perfectly, and it's just you don't beat him because there's a formula that they've discovered. And what this movie is. It runs a lot like a normal Marvel movie. It's a pretty typical origin Marvel story. It's a lot like Thor. Really, the first Thor movie and I think Captain Marvel are about the same amount of good in my brain. And I really like Thor, so that kind of is a predisposition for me liking probably Captain Marvel more than the typical Marvel fan. But I thought it was super good. I mean, it wasn't as good as it was better than Avengers: Age of Ultron, but probably not as good as the rest of the Avengers movies, in my opinion. It was better. It was not better than Black Panther. Was not better than Thor Ragnarok. Probably in my brain, it's as good as Ant-Man, but I was also never the, oh my fucking God, Ant-Man's the best. I liked that movie a lot, but I was never that. But it's great. I mean, Ant-Man and the Wasp was awesome too. So I would also probably put it with that movie. Kind of in that region, but better than The Incredible Hulk. Better than Thor Dark World. Better than Iron Man 2 and 3, in my opinion, but not better than Iron Man 1, which is amazing.
Right.
So, pretty good. I mean, I think Brie Larson's awesome. She's an Academy Award winner, so how can you go wrong with an Oscar winner playing, a role in your movies?
Right.
Super good backstory. I think for the toughest part about this movie is that there's a lot of obscure shit in it, just like there was with Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff, because you get a lot of the cosmic entities involved and stuff again. And luckily, we had the Guardians movies, and we've had Thor Ragnarok, and we've had the Avengers movies that have kind of like given us enough explanation as to like all the cosmic players in the moment, that when you see it in this movie, you go, oh yeah, I remember, sorry, spoilers a little bit. I remember like Ronan, the Accuser. Like he looks a little different in this movie, but you remember him from, the Guardians of the Galaxy. You remember the Kree, you remember the Skrull, you remember like all these different little references to these different people. So it's like, oh, this like makes sense to me. So, but still there were some references in it that I'm like, oh man, I'm not like a big enough comic book reader to really have remembered a lot of this stuff. But I think it was pretty well done. I think it's tough because I kind of wish that this movie would have come out maybe a year ago, even before like Black Panther. That way that Carol Danvers is just like more involved in it, because it's kind of tough because she's going to be involved in Endgame for sure. And it sucks because, it's like she's a powerful player, and you get somebody who's equally like cosmically powerful, like Thor. Like really the top two most powerful people in the Marvel universe that aren't Thanos are Thor and Carol Danvers.
So
in their movie universe, I mean, we can go in the comics and it's a whole thing, but this universe,
that's what I wanted to ask you next. Was, did you get the feeling that she was the most devastating being that could be a formidable opponent for Thanos in this movie? Did you feel that like going through the movie?
Going through the movie, you don't really feel it until the end, when you do feel it, because they kind of spike her power level pretty hard, like when the moment comes, and they do it in a really fun way, like with the artificial intelligence, the whatever they call supreme intelligence. They spike her power level super hard, and I kind of almost expected it to be higher up at the beginning, and then kind of like gradually getting more, like kind of like Thor. I think it's my brain equating cosmic beings with Thor. Because the original Marvel thing was like you had the Hulk, which is just like a science experiment gone wrong. So you just kind of throw that to the wayside. And we all know about the Hulk. We know how Hulk get angry, Hulk get strong.
Right.
And then, but we all started this whole parade with Iron Man. And the whole point of Iron Man is it's a regular dude, like regular, but a guy. Right. He just happens to be a genius, and he's super rich. So he's basically Batman in the Marvel universe.
Right.
And he builds himself a superpowered suit. And like that's the whole thing. It's like, this is just a man becoming extraordinary by sheer willpower.
Right.
And then like, Captain America becomes powerful basically because of the Starks, making the super soldier serum.
Right.
But still he's not like massively overpowered. He's just like a super strong guy who can run really fast and hit really hard and just like have super stamina. And then all of a sudden you go to this Thor movie, and I think a lot of people were hesitant when Thor first came out, because they said, well, how the hell are you going to do a mystical being who just exists in some other world when what you're playing with is Iron Man?
Right.
And, I think they did a pretty decent job in that movie going, hey, this is like a different realm, but like they're connected to Earth in this way. They're always watching over you. Everything can be interconnected. And in that movie, Thor was pretty strong from the get-go because he's Thor. Like you expected the god to be strong.
Yeah.
And he was. And then he obviously like does his thing, becomes more powerful at the end, but it's like very gradual. There's a little dip in the middle, and then he comes back straight back up, and it's like, oh, cool. Like it goes from like, oh, I can barely beat the metal guy to like, I can beat the shit out of the metal guy, but that's kind of like where I am.
Right.
Whereas in this movie, Carol Danvers starts out as a badass who can beat people up, and then just becomes this fucking supernova who just obliterates things. I mean, she goes from the point from like, oh, I can beat up 20 guys in the hallway to I can blast a ship, like a massive ship, and just like by myself, just destroy, which, you kind of get that feeling from Thor in Infinity War when he's holding that thing and getting blasted by a star and he lives, he's a super strong being. You kind of get that feeling with Carol Danvers too, but the spike is so sudden that, and it makes sense in the context of the movie. I just think that, Captain Marvel probably could have been a Captain Marvel 1 and 2 had this been done 3 or 4 years ago, where you start her out more modestly, make her somewhat powerful, get her involved with the Avengers like she is in the comic books, and then even spike her up harder because like something happens where it's like, oh, you've now unlocked like level 2, kind of like Thor. It's like you are Thor, you're powerful, but it's mostly Mjolnir. Just you use it because you don't know how to like harness your power.
Right.
And then in the second one, he kind of becomes better and more aware of that. He like makes some character driven growth, but it's like, whatever. And then in the third one in Ragnarok, he like goes from, having Mjolnir and being that kind of powerful to basically embodying his power like in himself without needing like a focus.
Right.
And he like elevates himself to like the next level. And then in Infinity War, he again elevates himself with the Stormbreaker, and it just makes him just like just straight up god, like the god at that point. And it took 4 movies for him to get there, whereas like with Danvers, there's like, whoop, you're here now.
Yeah, and I think that may be the thing that I struggle with from that point is number one. I'll tell you, and we talked about this a little bit earlier.
Yep.
I had a terrible experience at the theater itself, and so that really fucked it up.
Bogged it down for you.
Because anytime anybody of importance was on the screen, I had somebody behind me
in the background
who was
was
talking and trying to explain to his mom, who's never seen a
Marvel movie. There are 20 of them, and you haven't seen a single
who the
one.
person was, and so I'm trying to hear what's
Ronan
going on.
Was
talking about.
Yeah.
Wow, Ronan, this is one of my favorite villains in all of the Marvel universe, and he's talking right now,
and I can't
goddamn
hear
what's
it.
going on, and I can't understand what he's fucking saying. and so by the end of the film, it got to a point where I actually had to get up and move, and so now I'm out of it. And I'm trying to explain to my wife why I just moved next to her after being away from her for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I'm totally out of it. And
Yep.
so for me, maybe I missed that like connection of, oh, she is really, really powerful, and the mitts have finally come off, and she's actually able to take care of what's going on here. But I don't know. The film for me, just for some reason, just never really hit all the buttons that I was hoping for when it came to like, this is the most important character now in the Marvel universe.
I really think they're going to make her a main player in the next phase of Marvel, but she's not going to be the main player. I still really think the main player is going to be Doctor Strange. I really think that he should be.
I hope so.
Because
for multiple reasons.
And I think Benedict Cumberbatch was a wonderful choice for that. Like really at first we're like, I don't know about that. And then he is Doctor Strange. Like, oh, perfect. Great. Nailed it.
And he's the next Robert Downey Jr.
And in Infinity War, he was great. He was perfect as Doctor Strange. He got to pull out the bag of tricks.
Yep.
He did all the cool stuff. He has this, the way Cumberbatch brings to the role, like this kind of like cosmic understanding is very cool. I really think of all the new troupe, Doctor Strange, Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel, Black Panther, maybe Spider-Man you could probably throw in there, even though I don't know how well he's going to... Sony still kind of holds the reins on that character, so they may or may not, they're gonna, but they probably can always be like, oh, it's ours too, with, how Spider-Man has that kind of history. But really, he'd be like a new popular character to like lead the next generation of the Avengers. But of all those characters, I think Doctor Strange is by far the best one to like be the ringleader and really the more powerful
I think so too,
one.
and especially if you look at if Thor's not around, and because and Guardians of the Galaxy, who knows what they'll do. They've got the third one coming out, so obviously there's a good chance that all those characters will return. But after the third one, who knows what happens? It sounds like it's a trilogy, so they may just ride off into the sunset.
Well, and they made trilogy like Iron Man, where you finish your 3 movies, and then every other appearance you make is in everything else as a main character, but never as your own movie. It could very well
be, and they could still wind up going that direction. The other thing I wanted to ask about was continuity issues with the Marvel Universe and Captain Marvel, the movie. Are you concerned at all about the continuity issues?
Well, what do you have in mind? Because I don't know if I really thought there was too much continuity busting in Captain Marvel, really. I mean,
one of the main ones is Nick Fury and the whole Avengers Initiative.
Yeah. In terms of doing that in the 90s instead of doing it in like the mid 2000s
it's who he originally said was the reason why. And it was kind of like when DC went with the whole like we never needed to have a silver bullet for the monster until the monster flew in and landed on our planet.
Yeah.
It was initially Thor, and you can go back and
So
Fury
basically saying
it wasn't until we
because
saw
the hammer
Thor-
flies in the desert and we discover because
Yeah.
they know it's from him, but they don't really know because in that whole thing it was like you had the first Iron Man movie, and then the end credit scene is Sam Jackson coming and say, "I'm Nick Fury. You don't know who I am, but
Right.
I'm going to start a team up. You want to come?"
Right.
And then in the Incredible Hulk, they double it up because those movies came out within months of each other, which is crazy to think that they put out.
Yeah.
Nowadays, 2 Marvel movies within like 2 months of each other. They were all both out in the theater, I think, at the same time
but
for
they
a
had
while.
they had no connection.
The only
know.
connection was the post-credit scene, which was like, oh my fucking god, these are connected. Which people were really used to, either solo movies or like lined up trilogies, like the X-Men or the Spider-Man movies. It wasn't like, oh, we could just make 50 movies that all are in the same universe, but like it's not exactly the same thing.
Right.
But in that post-credit scene, Tony Stark goes up to General Ross and says, "Oh, we're getting a team together," and everybody's like, "Great." So in my head, because then the next movie after that, I think was Thor, or was it Captain America? Do you remember which one came out
I
chronologically?
think Captain America did, and
then Thor.
Yeah.
Because then, I guess because really the title of Captain America is the first Avenger. That's the title of that movie, but nobody mentions that in that movie. That term is really never
Correct.
brought up at all. And then Thor, like in my understanding, was the post-credit scene then in Captain America was the hammer in the desert, right?
I think
And everybody's
so,
like, "What the
yeah.
hell did this come from?" And we all know it's Thor because it's Thor's
Right.
hammer. But to me, that almost says in universe, like we don't really know exactly what this is because they built that site around it. They tried to pull it out, but they didn't really I guess, really know about Thor's existence. Because then when Thor comes, like the scientist and Natalie Portman's character and stuff are like, "Who the fuck are you? Da da da! Like, what's going on?" And then he like tells them that, and they're like, "That's bullshit!" Like, because obviously you would say that if somebody was like, "I'm the God of Thunder," and like, okay, God of Thunder, Lord of Thunder, and eventually he's like, "Oh, show me where the hammer is," and they're like, "Why?" And then they take him out there. So in my opinion, they didn't really. So I guess you're saying that Nick Fury makes it because of Thor, but they didn't really know exactly.
There's other things too, and I want to tell you right now, you've done an excellent job of like bringing me back into the fold. I wasn't going to shit all over this movie, but I also wasn't when you were like, this is like top 10. I was thinking,
but I mean, 10 out of 20 is still. If you're in the middle, that's the middle.
For me, before you started talking and getting me excited about the movie.
I'm pushing you in the right direction.
It was bottom 10, maybe even bottom 5.
I'm better at putting the movie out to you because that lady was at the movie ruining your fucking experience.
I think so.
And I saw it today, so I'm like, let me relay what happened to the movie.
I think what I'm going to have to do is like actually go back and rewatch it. That's one of the things.
No, you'll like it more because then you'll see all the stuff that you missed and be like, oh, well, fuck, I wish I would have seen this the first time when I did it.
And so that's the other thing too is there's other things that kind of come up too where it's like continuity just it's not syncing up right, and I'm sure other people that have watched the movie can probably remember some of the other things. The other part of the Tesseract really kind of throws me too, and I know they're doing that purposefully. There's a reason why they did it. There's a reason why the post-credit scene is the way that it is, where it's ambiguous as to did that happen after what happened in Endgame? Did that happen way before? Like, there's a good chance that happened the same day that Captain America got out of his coma.
So you were thinking. So how much can we spoil this movie?
Spoilers right now for the next let's say 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Just so we can work through this. So fast forward 3 minutes, and then we'll probably be done by this.
Yeah,
so,
we'll go to something else. So starting now. So at the post-credit scene, you have the first one
not the one where she shows up.
She shows up.
I could give a shit about that.
Which was fucking cool because like, where's she at? She's right behind him. I'm like, oh fuck.
It was, and that's the easy one.
But the post-credit scene,
she's here now.
The post-credit scene of the what do you call it? the furnucklin?
Yeah.
What the hell they call it? The cat.
The cat that swallows the Tesseract.
Yep.
He regurgitates the Tesseract
onto his desk.
Onto the desk.
To me, that looked like that scene just happened because, like, why would Nick Fury agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., master of S.H.I.E.L.D. at some point, basically, still have that shitty ass office later in life? Like, do you think that's just the way he liked it, was this garbage office? Like, that to me, that
he was never in the office though.
Well, he wasn't in the office at that
somebody had
point.
to take care of the cat.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying is there's a good possibility that took place because right before that, at the end of the movie, he says to Coulson, "Let me know if it turns up." Right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
and
After
a
he
ton
gives
of-
him the
ton of
eyes
cheek-
and it's funny, let me know
like-
when it turns up. Yep.
So there's
So
there's a
so what
possibility-
happens then? So because it's the first like timeline chronological point that Tesseract appears is in Captain America in the 40s. Red Skull.
Correct.
Red Skull.
Correct.
They're like, oh, it's in Norway. He goes and finds it, turns into the Red Skull, and then later on, he's basically deemed unworthy of the Tesseract, and that's why
goes
he
into
becomes
the ocean. Stark's dad picks it up.
So the
gives it-
Tesseract was in the ocean.
Yes.
With Captain America on the ship.
Yes.
So that goes down.
Goes down. They get
Howard
Cap-
Stark's
they get
looking for
Captain-
the Tesseract,
They get
finds
they
Captain
get
America.
The Tesseract,
Yep.
excuse me. And so S.H.I.E.L.D. now acquires it.
Okay.
Okay.
And they've
so-
had it for this amount of time. Then Marvel.
So
then in Captain Marvel.
Pegasus gets it from S.H.I.E.L.D., which it's one and the same.
Yeah, they're
right?
same thing, and that's when
S.H.I.E.L.D.
that's when the Kree Marvel is doing her experiments
Correct.
with the Tesseract.
So now we're caught up there. Cat eats it. Obviously, that's in the 90s.
So when does it pop up again? It's because they don't.
Pops up again in Avengers, the original, when the
Isn't it
doctor
the-
from Thor is working on
because that's the end scene in
they
Thor.
open it up. He's like, "We need you to look at this," and he's like, "Oh,
Yeah,
shit,
and it's
this-
in like
this
it's
is
in
the
like a
shit."
briefcase. So to me, in my opinion, that doesn't mess continuity up at all because it just says stayed with S.H.I.E.L.D. this whole time. They
And
just
so the
haven't
cat-
figured
So
out.
the cat puked it up.
Somebody
a
picked
long
it
time
up.
ago.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about
in the 90s still.
in the 2000s.
No, I
Probably
think he
about-
still posted up in like 1995 or 6. Like he was just like,
Could
oh,
be.
because in my opinion, if you're like Nick Fury and you're on that particular career track, he was like a level like garbage agent at that point. Like still in there, but not like Coulson's the newbie.
Right.
And then S.H.I.E.L.D.'s like the vet, but he's not like, Nick Fury, Colonel Nick Fury, like Nick Fury running shit. He was just a guy in the field like Coulson is later on. And so that's why they have that old office park. They have that old office that he was working in because that's his old like middle management office. So to me, on a normal career track, as S.H.I.E.L.D. evolves over time, as S.H.I.E.L.D. gets more power, gets more money, gets more technology, and Fury moves up, he's obviously going to move to a facility much more akin to the Triskelion in Washington.
Yeah.
So that old ass office, like to me, it just means, hey, the cat at some point later, but still in the same general region of time in the 90s, gets rid of it, and then they come and go, oh shit, there's a Tesseract, and then they put
And
it in the
that's when it
briefcase,
starts.
and then they look at the briefcase and they keep it, or not briefcase, but whatever way they keep it, and they're just trying to figure out what do we do with it until they finally go, oh hey, Selwig, like look at this, we need to look, and look, he's like, haha, we should look at it, and then it becomes,
and so
the
that's
Avengers.
that's what I'm hoping. Mm-hmm. But
That's the way I took it
there's
from seeing it.
speculation
So
that it's present day. The cat just puked up the actual Tesseract. So whatever Thanos crushed, the Soul Stone out of wasn't actually the real Tesseract, which makes me go, well,
that's
if you're
bullshit
gonna
because then he
if you're
couldn't-
going to predicate the entire rest of your Marvel storyline on half the population's gone. Something had to have done that. Now if you say, well, everybody's stuck in the Soul Stone, and they didn't actually use the Tesseract Stone, the Blue Stone, whatever one that one is, the Power Stone or whatever.
It's the Space Stone,
Space
I
Stone,
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
Then all that can be reversed. Okay, I guess that's true too. But that's the part that
to me, I really think that that's almost like looking for when you hear hoofs and you think zebras before horses. Well, like if you ever hear hooves in your life, like 99% of the time, it's probably horses because horses are much more common than zebras.
Right.
But some people just get the notion that they want to make it complicated for complicated sake.
Right.
So they go this really roundabout, like, what if it was this fake thing? Da da da. In my opinion, it's a straight line that says the cat pukes up the Tesseract. S.H.I.E.L.D. goes, okay, well, the cat isn't like the guardian of it anymore, so we have to like hide it, but we're still going to study it because we're S.H.I.E.L.D. and that's what we do. They do that for however many years until they find out that, hey, Tony Stark is doing his crazy shit. There's a fucking Green Maniac out there. Captain America's
Super
alive
Soldier.
again, and here comes this god oh shit, maybe we should like open the Tesseract because, like you said, Silver Bullet. We need to figure some way out to like either control these guys or make sure that they're on our side instead of whatever. And then the Tesseract then makes its way around. It goes to Asgard to be held safely.
Right.
Loki steals it. Eventually gives it to Thanos.
Even though they also had a gauntlet that was already made with...
That was a fake gauntlet. Yeah.
There's so many things.
That's the funny part though, because that's in Thor Ragnarok. Hela's like garbage, which basically is just a big punch at Odin.
Yeah.
Saying like, oh, this guy thinks he's like the master god, but he just keeps junk and trinkets in his thing to like make himself feel good. And basically saying that's interesting because that's the real Tesseract and also the eternal flame of whatever the fuck. So to me, it's a straight line to there.
I think so.
It's the real stone.
I think so too.
Because Thanos does it, snaps it. So I really think the way we're speculating now, it's only like a month away. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
When. But I really think it's going to be something to do with the quantum realm that helps them figure out whatever they need to do to get people back because. Scott Lang is in the quantum realm when the snap happens. He comes out and he's like, "What the fuck?" Yeah. So you can have all kinds of.
I think Ant-Man and the Wasp is way more important to this storyline than any other ones that have come out in the last year or two.
Because
way more.
All the stuff you did with the quantum realm in that movie, like introduced a whole new like dimension. It's super insane.
Yeah.
And then you think about it, and you can do so many stuff with quantum
underplayed
stuff.
It so much.
Yep,
that's the beauty.
Because it was an Ant-Man movie. It's like, oh, it's a thing that we do.
Yeah,
but it's
so
perfect
all the people
because
that actually watched that movie and like enjoyed it and really like broke it down. That's going to be the payoff for everybody.
That's going to be, and to me, that's the whole thing. So I think that the quantum realm is going to be the important part because really, with the quantum realm, time kind of doesn't exist in the quantum realm. Like it does, but in a very weird way. Just like, so Hank Pym's wife goes in there and she ages like a normal person because when she comes out, she's older, but she doesn't have any real concept of time while she's down there. Or her concept of time is way fucked up. So who knows? Some people have said, Scott Lang comes out of the quantum realm in the wrong year, goes and finds like younger versions of something, or eventually finds his way back, some sort of time traveling thing. And I think that's more, plausible as a plot device in my opinion than this whole fake Tesseract thing that you're bringing up and I've never heard of and I'm just stomping it out. I'm like, this is bullshit.
That's good.
It's because I think that's perfect because literally Avengers Infinity War comes out and Ant-Man and the Wasp is the first movie after Infinity War came out to come out and it was like, how are they going to do this movie when it's already happened? Well, we find out then it takes place literally right before and during the events of it, and we know that Hawkeye and Ant-Man aren't participating with the Avengers nonsense because they're on house arrest and they do it because of their families and stuff. So this entire time that the Avengers shit's going down and in space and everywhere else, Scott Lang is basically just stuck in San Francisco doing basically whatever he's doing. And then finally everything goes down and all of a sudden his friends just disappear because the snap happens simultaneously on the other side of the world in Wakanda. And it's like, oh, that's fucking cool. But then it's just, it ties it together perfectly. Like, really, Ant-Man and the Wasp is a better movie than Captain Marvel. But I don't think it's that much better than probably you think it is. But that's also, like you said, your movie-going experience was kind of shitty. Yeah. And this movie did have its flaws. Like, if I gave the movie, like, out of 10, I would call it a 7 out of 10. Yeah. It's a solid-ass movie. Yeah. It's fun. It's entertaining. I love Brie Larson. She's the best. It's perfect casting for Captain Marvel. Perfect. You get tons of callbacks. Like Jude Law is perfect in his role. He's wonderful. Everything works in that movie. It's great.
We're getting spoiled too. That's the thing.
We're like, I don't know if it's great, but it's like they're all good.
That's the other thing that I keep thinking too. Is like,
you're right.
Is like, shame on me because I'm even being pissy about like a movie that 10 years ago
would have been considered
blown everybody's nuts off, and so it's hard for them too because they've obviously set themselves up.
The bar is
for failure,
quite high now.
There's no way, like it's Endgame or bust for most people right now, and I guess that's a good segue. Is did you watch the new Endgame trailer? Yeah, so another one of those things where it's like, they're already giving away spoilers in this thing, or like you said, there's some sort of reverse timeline that maybe Scott is dealing with where they switch it. Who knows?
Nothing would make me happier than Ant-Man being like almost the most important person in this whole thing. Like Paul Rudd's awesome. Yeah. Ant-Man movies are super underrated and underthought of, but wonderful. Like they really knocked it out of the park with both of them.
Right.
And people like kind of put Ant-Man in with the movies and stuff, but really he hasn't been involved with these because in the first Ant-Man he's just a dude,
right?
Does the whole Ant-Man thing. It's very separate from everything else, and then all he has involved with the Avengers is only with some of them in Civil War,
right?
And he's not with them either. He's just kind of chilling there, gets caught, gets put on house arrest. So really, this will be the first Avengers movie that Ant-Man is in, and it would be just wonderful for him to be one of the main components of this movie, as another part of the new lineup, the new breed of the Avengers.
And I think they've done a good job of like squashing the hopes or of the necessity of the X-Men to be part of this.
Yes.
Like I remember right after Endgame came out, my mind started to fly with like, oh shit, they need to have
the
Professor
X-Men
X, and they need
and
to
the
have
Fantastic Four. Everybody needs to come in now.
I'm not even.
You don't
thinking
need
about
it
that.
because
I'm
they
like,
can probably.
Let's just wait on this. Like, let's save this for some time later.
Let it happen.
Let the acquisition happen. Like,
let it happen organically. Yep.
And exactly. So
because they can though, if they can keep riding the wave as long as it goes, they keep making quality movies with fun stories and everything's connected well enough.
Right.
You can eventually get all your pieces together.
Yeah.
And that's great too because then you can ride that wave for 30 straight years of just making billions of dollars. It's just insane. So, but overall, I thought Captain Marvel was a pretty decent movie. It was fun. I thought it was definitely worth going and seeing for sure. I mean, if you're a Marvel fan, you have to go see a movie in theaters. If you don't, then you're doing yourself a disservice.
Right.
But obviously, Endgame is going to be a million times better. It's just going to be just a brain bleeder.
It's the money shot. It's
it is. Everybody's waiting for it. They want it.
Everybody wants it.
3-hour movie, and I'm in it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to be incredible. It's I'm still looking forward to what's in between here and there, which has nothing to do with Marvel. Shazam still looks like a really fun movie.
That's coming out in a
Hellboy's
week or
reboot
two.
is coming out really soon too. So there's still a lot of movies to get excited about in between now and then. But obviously, Endgame is the end all be all.
That's 2019's big movie is Endgame. Yep.
So, Kyle, we got maybe like 10 more minutes left. I thought we'd get to one other line of business.
Trying to shoehorn the show in.
Right. It was news was just broken recently that Marvel and Disney have come to terms to reinstate James Gunn
Jimmy
as
Gunn.
the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 movie. He was the one.
The movie that is using his script.
He wrote the script.
And was ready to go, and everybody was ready to go.
Unceremoniously removed from position about 6 months ago?
Yeah, for some tweets he made a decade ago.
10-year-old tweets
that weren't even really that bad, and also he was a crude personality to begin with.
Correct.
And it's like,
and that's
just
that
it was
personality and that humor comes out in the movies that he actually makes.
That's
not
why
just Guardians of the Galaxy.
Exactly,
but it's definitely there.
Exactly.
Since then, DC really jumped on it, and I don't know
Stole
if that
him
was
for-
a chain reaction, but he's going to be doing Suicide Squad.
So is he
2.
still going to do? Is he going to do
He's
both?
going to do both, and so
he doesn't give a shit because he's like, Marvel, fuck you. Like, I'm doing both sides now. What are you going to do?
This is
thanks for the money.
A win-win
for him,
for comic book fans, and for movie fans right now, because you just took the person who made the most irrelevant group in Marvel
into one of the most popular thing,
and popular and awesome. Like, they're the coolest group in the whole damn thing, and now he's going to do it with Suicide Squad.
Yep, another irrelevant, weird group.
Exactly,
of arguably more well-known people than the Guardians were. I mean, everybody knows who Harley Quinn is.
Damn.
A lot of people know who Deadshot is. A lot of people know who Killer. If you're a Batman fan, you know the Suicide Squad.
Yeah,
pretty much everybody in it. You know.
Pretty much a way that they were able to get the whole rogues gallery from every single superhero that they had and give them a little bit of book time, So I guess, Kyle, initial thoughts on the rehire and maybe what you think the reasoning was in their eyes or in your eyes, what the reasoning may have been.
The rehire is kind of surprising because, Disney, the mouse, they usually don't renege on themselves that hard because they're Disney. Like, they're humongous now. They just control shit. So
they can get anybody.
They can get anybody. They can really do anything they want to do. So it's kind of surprising that they did this move to begin with, the whole firing of him, because really it's like a lot of things these days with outrage. There are things to be outraged about, but there is a culture of outrage that just exists in general for everything. Doesn't matter what it is, what side of the spectrum it is, what manner of thing it is. There's going to be a sect of people who just get pissed off about it. That's just the reality of it, right? So some of those people got pissed off about James Gunn for some reason because I can't remember who it was that dug these tweets up, but they're like, look at this is bullshit. Oh my God, I can't believe it. And then pretty much everybody was like, yeah, dude, those tweets are from 10 years ago and it's him. Like, It's fine. Like, he wasn't advocating for anything. He was just making some probably crude jokes that, these days he wouldn't make and he didn't make. Like, these weren't yesterday. These didn't
land and he knew they
and he was like, okay, well,
back when,
And, in people change over time and obviously he's not a bad dude because, like, what's the worst thing that's ever happened? He made some tweets. Like, this guy doesn't get in trouble for shit.
Right.
But the cult of outrage then, like, moves it up into the stratosphere, and then Disney is like, okay, damage control time. I guess it's DC time, and they nix him in a real knee-jerk way, and everybody's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what? And so I think the whole what are you doing crowd was much larger, and I mean, it's much larger because the entire cast and crew of Guardians was like, we're not going to make another movie unless he's the director because he's part of, like, the soul of this movie. These movies aren't like they are without him being involved, so why the fuck would we make another movie?
That's still 5 months ago, so now you have to fast forward.
But that's the thing. I think they've kind of figured, okay, we're in support of, we want him to be our director, but if it's not going to happen, then, like, Thor Ragnarok's director, I guess, will do it, or somebody else will do it, and we'll use his script, which was kind of a slap in the face to him because he gave him his script, and they weren't even going to let him use it. But anyway, we all kind of probably thought, okay, whatever, it's Disney, don't cross the mouse, or else you're going to get fucking kicked out, and then they're just going to do this. And I think Disney eventually was just like, you know what, let's just, like, wait till the dust settles, and then we'll get him back in and be like, after further consideration, he's fine, we took our time, we're not going to ever mention that it was ever our dumbass fault to begin with that he's gone, but we will take him back. And then it's perfect for Jimmy Gunn because now he gets to come back, put a nice cap, a nice ending on his trilogy his way, make a shitload of money because he's going to. And then Warner Brothers is going to pay his ass too because he's like, I'll keep doing Suicide Squad. And, like, what are you going to do about it? Like, what are you going to do about Disney? Like, something must have happened where Disney was like, people are clamoring for another Guardians movie and they know it exists and the script is out there. We cannot make this movie without him. They must have been like, oh shit, like, we can't make it. There's nobody who can make it. I guess we have to take him. We have to.
That's what I almost wonder is if it was kind of a industry gentleman's agreement where the guys that were brought in to take over for that went to Disney and were like, we physically cannot make this.
We can't do it.
I don't have the vision to do this.
Even if it was technically not true, they were like, for their boy,
they're just like, no, we just can't. And so they finally had to power down and be like, all right, I guess James Gunn's the only guy who's going to be able to do this. The other thing that I think is kind of, it's odd that the timing is right after the Suicide Squad 2 announcement and then hearing that,
and it's on the hype train of Captain Marvel and Endgame all at the same time, as people are aware.
That Idris Elba is going to be Deadshot. Like, that's big news.
It's like we got a more handsome and English Will Smith to be Deadshot. Like, oh, perfect.
It's like, oh, perfect. Will Smith's out. I wonder who they'll get.
And cast like them, the better version of him. Awesome.
And so I think I think that it probably has nothing to do with it, but I think the timing just reeks of like, oh, we got Endgame coming up. We can't have the focus going on the excitement over James Gunn and Suicide Squad that doesn't come out for another 2 years.
Either that or they just, they're just going to ride the train of, everything is happening right now. Like you said, Suicide Squad announcement's happening, but also every time a Marvel movie comes out, no matter what it is, which is now Captain Marvel and will then become... This is just like last year. Black Panther came out in February, and then Avengers came out in April. So you had like two explosions of like fun and popularity.
Right.
Well, once everybody's in Marvel mode, when there's a Marvel movie in theaters, that's when everybody's like everything peaks. Like Twitter mentions and Twitter like trending of Marvel stuff peaks because there's a movie out.
Yeah.
And everything in that realm peaks. Why not announce, hey, James Gunn is coming back while everybody's got their eyes on it, and then people go, oh my fucking God, yay! And then that's what it is.
It's a
and instead of them taking shit from people, which they are, but not as much so, they instead get lauded for being like, you made the right choice by bringing James Gunn back. When in the end, they probably were going to fucking anyway.
And like you said,
well,
letting the dust settle, the outrage culture had to get removed, before you could bring him back.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And instead of them just being like, nope, this is the guy we're sticking with. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody says something stupid.
Really could have
in their
avoided all
life.
this dumb shit. But it is what it is, because now that's all they're going to talk about is the next big thing after Endgame, and Spider-Man is going to be the Guardians movie and whatever else comes like with the other people. But like we all know that Guardians 3 is going to come at some point. Right. So that's going to be the next like kind of probably big one we all look forward to.
And they'll probably fast track it too, just because
they already have a script and they have the cast minus Gamora, R.I.P. Maybe we don't know, maybe not yet. We don't know. I mean, that's what they say. The Soul Stone is the one that's more complicated than the other ones because it's got its own sentient mind apparently, and the fact that he had to give Gamora away to get the Soul Stone. I mean, she may or may not be gone because maybe the Soul Stone's doing all this shit on its own. It's like, I think you have no dominion over me.
There's a difference between turning into dust with everybody else and actually
being killed on a cliff.
Yeah,
but you don't know if the Soul Stone. I mean, that's the thing I always was reading, was that of all the 6 stones, that the Soul Stone was the most important one because it had a mind of its own instead of the other ones just being power incarnate.
Right.
The Soul Stone, being powerful of its own accord, also developed its own sentience, where then it can kind of like you have the gauntlet, and Thanos has the gauntlet, or anybody could, but in this case, it's Thanos wielding the gauntlet, putting the stones in it. As he puts the stones together, they become more powerful, and then he gets all of them, and he becomes very powerful. But it's almost like those stones kind of submit to the power of the gauntlet and the wielder, whereas like the Soul Stone doesn't. Like it's like it's like I am no one's my master. I am yours, or I am like independent.
And that's the
and with the whole soul world thing with that people postulate about with the soul, like that's the
really
dust
the
people.
only thing that I really just I wish they would have been able to get to before Guardians of the Galaxy 3, because I think it'll play a role going forward. But the Adam Warlock character,
that's definitely going to be a focus.
God, that would have made way more sense. But they decided to go with Captain Marvel because she's female. She is way less complicated than a demigod like Thor that was actually created out of gold. Adam Warlock is way out there.
But they teased it at the end of that movie. That's the direction they're going.
I know they had it right there. They could have introduced him in Thor Ragnarok.
But it's totally cool because now you have another big guy that can become a big guy for the next phase. Well, because what are you going to do when one big bad eventually goes down in Thanos? You have to have another. And Adam Warlock's not a big bad, but he could be.
I mean, he's worse than Thanos. Yeah, he's when it really comes down to it. But he's also better than Thanos, as far as a good guy. Like he's the worst of the worst, and he's the best of the best. That's literally his character
thing.
Is the dichotomy of the two. It's evil and good, and that's what it comes down to. So I don't know, man. There's so many good things coming out.
Yeah, and it's tough not to be excited.
I'm glad you're bringing me back in on Captain Marvel.
Yeah, man. I'm here to provide the mostly objective views of it. Like, because when I was watching it, knowing that I was going to come in today and talk to you about it. I said, okay, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it as close as I can while still enjoying it, to try to remember as much as I could to regurgitate it to you.
And that's good.
I really thought it was pretty well done. I mean, the whole thing about I think in The Winter Soldier, or some other time when Nick Fury says, oh, hey, well, how'd you lose your eye? He's like, I lost it because I trusted somebody. Well, the thing he trusted was the cat, because he says in the movie, I trust you, and then he scratches him and fucks his eye. I'm like, that's funny. That's true. He said that, and then it happened, even though it was the cat. Sorry, that's a spoiler. You can. Maybe we'll put a thing on the YouTube video that says, "Whoops, there a spoiler came out randomly at the shit, fuck." And it's tough not to, because it's so fresh in my head that it's of course, in my head, I'm like, I've seen the movie, so everyone has. But that's, of course, that's not
why
the case,
when I text you, I didn't text, and when I was like, have you seen Captain Marvel? You're like, we're going to see it again. I purposely didn't text you back and be like, oh, I fucking hated it. Good, try to enjoy it, or something like that. And then when you got over here, is like, how'd you like the movie?
I was like, yeah.
You said, I liked it.
I liked it,
And
yeah.
We didn't talk about it. Like, we didn't go
Yeah.
into it like this.
We couldn't because we knew we had to fucking save it for the show.
Well, sure.
Save it for the show. But yeah, and
But even still,
it
like-
takes time to get into to break the pieces down a little bit and move everything around. But I think it's a good superhero movie. It's fun. It's pretty well done. It's not the best one, but I think it's about ninth or 10th, which is the middle of the road for a Marvel movie. It is not the worst one, but it's not the best one. It's right in the middle somewhere. So that's 100% fine. That's 100% fine. Yep.
I can't wait until they put one that is actually like worse than and I liked Incredible Hulk, but most people say Incredible Hulk was the worst one that was ever put out.
I don't think
whatever the
Thor
bottom
Dark
is
World
forever,
was probably the worst one they put out. And I like Thor.
I love that one.
Yeah, it was just
let's
weird.
Just say
yeah,
Thor Dark World. I can't wait until they put something out that's worse than
or
Thor
Iron
Dark.
Man 3 wasn't very
You know,
good.
yeah, exactly.
Either. Although Iron Man 3, let's just get back to that movie that's been out for 8 years now. They fucked up the Mandarin, and it still makes me mad. Which is funny because I think the way they did it probably could have worked out better. They just did it so fucking weird. And I was like, fucking the Mandarin is a wonderful Marvel villain. It was just perfect. The way they started out, I'm like, oh my God. Well, I remember, back when you saw Iron Man 1, you're like, oh my fucking God, Iron Man's the coolest. He's the best. And then we saw Iron Man 2, we're like, nah, but it's still Iron Man, so he's dope. And then Iron Man 3 previews came out, and you saw the Mandarin, and they were kind of playing him up as like this Osama bin Laden, like terrorist, like, but he's genius. And everybody's like, oh my God. It looked sweet, and then it was so fucking dumb. And I'm like, you fucked up, Marvel, and that's okay.
Even Killian, I felt like they kind of fucked up too.
Oh yeah, that movie was just a giant fuck up, unfortunately, and that's
So
even like a
can't-
decent movie.
Exactly.
It's
I can't
even
wait
decent.
To see, they're gonna put out a stinker.
Well, they have to.
At some point, they're going to. It's just bound to happen, And so I'm kind of curious to see which one it'll be. Like,
Although I will say that some people regard plenty of the Marvel movies as stinkers because some people are real hard critics on everything. I think I'm a pretty light critic when it comes to most movies. Like, pretty much, I mean, I was always on the boat of the opinion of like Batman versus Superman and Man of Steel and Justice League were all like middling movies.
Right.
But some people think those are the biggest pieces of shit that have ever graced the silver screen. And then I was always like, hey man, it's cool. Probably because I like the content, the source content. I'm like, it's cool. Like, it's not as cool as it could be, but it's not that bad either. And I think I feel that way about Marvel, so I'm just like, but I'm sure there are people out there who are like, every Marvel movie sucks except for 3 movies, and it's like, I don't know.
I don't know. Growing up in a time where I was 9 or 10 when Keaton's
Batman was out,
and you were even younger than that.
Yeah, probably 6 or 7 or whatever.
It's so hard to argue when you see any of these movies come out, and I mean, like watching Aquaman, I felt watching Aquaman like I think Raiden felt when I was a kid watching Batman. It's just one of those things where it's just like, this is so awesome,
Yeah, we never got a chance. Do you want to talk about Aquaman for a second?
Let's
talk about Aquaman for a second.
Hold on. We're gonna save that for the next one. I can just feel we've got another whole
we got plenty left in the tank. Don't worry about it.
So we're gonna stop this one, guys. We will put this one out on Wednesday, and then we'll either put the next one out like Friday, or we'll put it out next Wednesday after that. Either way, this is kind of like the end of part one.
This is part 1.
Yes.
This is Infinity War, and we'll come out with our own Endgame next week.
Exactly.
In reality, it'll be 10 seconds from now.
And Captain Marvel will come in and give me mixed feelings all the way around. So, all right, guys, thank you for watching All Things Action. For All Things Action, this has been Dad, a.k.a. Aaron, and with me this week was
Kyle, a.k.a. the man behind the microphone, the man behind the microphone without the camera, owner of a podcast that I stopped doing for a couple months and then did one recently. That man, Kyle. Did I say my name twice? Did I book in it? I don't know.
That's all right.
It's okay. You should know who I am. If you've seen the show, you should know who I am.
No, it's from the Couch Podcast.
That's the one. It's still there. It's still out there in the ether.
Yes.
It is.
And go to Patreon, give him some money to make him feel like he needs to get back in there and fucking fight for this. So
give me some money.
That's right.
Give me some money.
But guys, thank you so much. We will see you next time.
Yes.
It's either next week or very soon.
Yes.
And we will keep the party going. So guys, until then, We will talk to you later. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.